Hello and welcome. I'm Johnny, and you want to give your website that elusive app-like feel, and I'll show you how using SvelteKit and the brand new experimental View Transitions API. Web developers have been chasing the app-like feel for decades. Since the iPhone came out and mobile apps started becoming parts of our lives, they felt fast, they felt sleek, they felt totally unlike your average web experience. So, as web developers would strive to get that app-like feel, often by emulating the stack navigation mobile apps have. I remember entering the critical views the user may be going to just off screen, then sliding them in when they finally do navigate. It was a hack crazy enough to work, so long as you didn't render too much and you didn't have too many next possible views to worry about. Now, a decade plus later, there's essentially a native way to emulate that hack, and more with way less code and performance cost. Crucially, it works the same no matter if your app has 3 pages or 3 million. So let's set up View Transitions in our SvelteKit app and see if we achieve that app-like feel. SvelteKit 1.24 introduced the onNavigate lifecycle method, which actually executes right before we navigate, which is exactly where we want to run our new code. Let's call it in our root plus layout.svelte, since we want this to happen no matter where our user is in our app. onNavigate takes a single parameter, a callback. If that callback returns a promise, SvelteKit will wait for it to resolve before completing the navigation. We can do all sorts of tricks with this, but all we want today is a quick document start view transition, which takes an asynchronous callback in which we'll immediately resolve our promise. The onNavigate callback gets given a navigation object and will also be awaiting navigation complete. Again, when we resolve the first promise, we're telling SvelteKit it's okay to complete the navigation. An asynchronous method, like this async fat arrow, will always return a promise, and by awaiting navigation completed inside it, we're making it resolve only after navigation to the next page completes. This start view transition is the heart of the View Transitions API, and it needs those 2 promises to work correctly with our SvelteKit app. The first promise essentially makes it so the browser can take a screenshot of the page we're on now before we navigate away, and the second promise makes it so it can take another screenshot right after the next page we're going to is ready and rendered. Those 2 screenshots are what we'll be custom animating later, but believe it or not, we already have page transitions working. If we navigate now, we get the default animated transition, which is a crossfade between the old page we're on and the new page we're navigating to. Woo! Sweet! We'll be applying a different animation to better emulate app-like stack navigation in just a moment. First, we need to take care of Typescript. If you are using Typescript, it's probably flipping out about start view transition. If you're from the future, Typescript may be chill about it, but today, start view transition is not typed in to be part of the document object. Because it isn't, not for every browser. It's still in the experimental stage. My preview on the right is latest Chrome, which does have start view transition, but Safari, for example, does not yet. So let's go in our app.t.ts and extend the document global. We do that by redeclaring interface document, in which we specify start view transition may be there. It could be undefined, but if it is there, it's going to be a function which returns nothing, but does take a callback which returns an empty promise. Remember, asynchronous methods always return promises. With that out of the way, we can go back to our root layout.svelte, check whether start view transition exists, because sometimes it doesn't, and only then do our magic. Things still work the same in Chrome, the transition plays out perfectly. The difference is that in browsers that don't support transitions, we don't crash anymore. Sweet! Extra sweet, because this means that in your next interview, you can say that yes, you are familiar with progressive enhancement. It's what we've just done. Regardless, this default crossfade is kinda boring. Let's change the animation to something closer to the stack navigation people love from mobile apps. We can open a style block right here in our layout.svelte, where we've been doing most of our work. To target the old page, we use a new pseudo element. In our root, we have the view transition old, and we target root, which is the default transition group, the one that has the crossfade if we leave it untouched. Similarly, to target the new page, we use root, view transition, new, root. We want each of them to play their own animation, so let's create keyframes for a modest fade out. It will be animating to 0 opacity. And let's create a slide from right for the new page, which will be coming in from 100% of its width to the right, which will make it just off screen. To do that, we use a transform will translate on the x-axis 100%. The real x position, the offset, would be 0. One page's width worth to the left would be minus 100%. All the way to the right is 100%. Alright, time to apply those animations. For the old page, we wanted to animate, get it done in 500 milliseconds, ease out so it slows down, fill both sides of the animation, and last, we have the name of the animation. We're gonna use fade out. For the new page, we'll do the same thing, but we're gonna use our slide from right animation. Let's click around now. Nice! Now, I just made those animations up. We can play around with them. Start with a bit of shadow for the new page. Have it scale a bit bigger, as if it's falling to the screen. But please, I'm not a designer. Feel free to experiment and find your own vision, or use snippets from Jeff's excellent article, which is cribbing Jake's excellent article. Always keeping in mind of performance costs and your user's willingness to see the same long and intricate animation again and again. Personally, I'd keep them subtle enough that even someone who prefers reduced motion would be okay seeing them, and have a toggle for power users, turn them off completely if they find them too distracting. Making that toggle would be a cool tutorial for another day, but we're not done learning about view transitions just yet. Now that the next page is flying in, we notice the new header is flying in with it to replace the old header, which is a bit weird since the header is a consistent element throughout our app. We may want to keep it in place while the rest of the page flies in. We can do that, no worries, since we can target specific elements and give them their own animations. We can go to our header.svelte and in the style block target its main container, the header element. We can specify it's going to be doing its own thing when it comes to transitions by setting view transition name to whatever. The value here is not magic. It has to be unique, but you can use whatever name you please. It just so happens that for me, what makes most sense is header. Of course, we haven't created a header transition, but that actually achieves the effect we want. The header will now stay in place while the rest of the page flies in. Just for demo purposes, if we did want our header to do something weird whenever we navigate, we can target a named transition group with root view transition group, the name of the group, so in our case, header. We could create keyframes for a sliding from left animation, have that one play for our header transition group. It's going to be the opposite animation of what the rest of our page is doing. Great! Did I mention I'm not a designer? Anyway, let's forget this ever happened. Let's just have our header stay in place and reinforce our learnings by applying the same thing to the footer. To have our footer stay in place as well, we open our footer.svelte, we create a style block, target the container element, which is footer, and specify view transition name footer. Done! Header and footer both stay in place, the rest of the page flies in. Things look perfect, but there is one last annoyance to take care of. The animations play even when we're clicking to go to the same page. Maybe you like that, but I don't. And a way to prevent it from happening is by going back to our layout.svelte. Remember this section? We only set up our view transitions if document start view transition is defined, if that's truthy, and now we want to add another check to this conditional. The navigation object has a from property, which has the route we're navigating from. We can get its ID and check that it is not equal to the navigation to route ID. It's a check for whether we're navigating to a different route. And only if we are, and document start view transition exists, only then we set up our view transitions. Indeed, if we click around now, we can see animations working perfectly, but do not replay if I happen to click on the same route again. Awesome! I'm super excited about the adoption and evolution of the View Transitions API, and I think even the essentials we went through today make for a more fun and indeed app-like website. I urge you to get familiar with it. Do read the excellent article by Jake, which includes a beautiful thumbnail to hero example, as well as responsive examples and many more. And of course, if you want more Johnny, check out this video on text gradients, while YouTube thinks you're also going to enjoy this one. Thanks a bunch for watching. I'll see you around.